Let's revisit the Desktop Explorer. As mentioned earlier, Desktop Explorer is where we hold our standards and batches. Desktop Explorer is named as such because we employ a desktop philosophy with tools. You can think of your desktop as your temporary work area. You never leave the desktop as long as the program is open. When you are finished with an individual color evaluation, you can move the data you would like to keep from the desktop into a folder on the system for permanent storage in the database. Standards and batches can be introduced to the desktop by measurement, retrieval from the database, or importing from a QTX file. A QTX file is the way Tools sends data electronically from one system to another. To illustrate this, let's walk through some of the Desktop Explorer functions. Currently we have a standard and batch that we retrieved earlier on the desktop. We will now measure in a standard and a batch. Measurement input is always done with the command buttons on the home bar. To measure a standard, place the sample in your instrument and press the Standard Instrument button. You will receive a dialog box to input the standard name. Input the name and press OK. The instrument then measures the standard and places it on the Desktop Explorer. The standard is highlighted and the standard data is now shown in the data grid. To measure a batch, place the batch in the instrument port and press the BAT-INST button. By default, the system is set up to auto-name and auto-number the batch, so it will not ask for the batch name. Data is now being displayed for the batch measured. The measure buttons for the standard and batch can also be used to manually input data. Clicking on the little arrow within the button allows other input options such as LAB coordinates, reflectance values, and more. Also notice that if contrast ratio, opacity, or haze measurements need to be done, which require 2 measurements per sample, this option can be chosen here. Datacolor Tools works with 2 types of databases, one for textile users and one for pigment users. Both types use the same mechanics for storing standards and batches. However, there are differences for data retrieval. We will be covering these differences in a future tutorial. Here, we are using the textile database. As mentioned before, to retrieve a standard and batch data from the database, the user can either right-click on the word Desktop or use the buttons on the home bar. Here, we will retrieve another standard from the database by using the right-click function. Once the standard is retrieved and visible on the Desktop Explorer, we can retrieve a batch or batches. After clicking on the dialog box again, we have the ability to choose one or multiple batches by holding the left mouse button down if they are sequential, or using the Control key to select them if they are non-sequential. To demonstrate importing standards from a QTX file, right-click on the desktop and select Import Desktop. The system will open a dialog box defaulting to the location on your system that is My Documents. That will allow you to select the desired QTX file. Choose the file, click Open, and the standards and batches are then available on the Desktop Explorer. Now that we have a few standards on the Desktop Explorer, we can show that by clicking on the name of different standards, that data is displayed on the template to the right. You will also notice that information for that standard and its active batch is displayed below.